One big team. One big team. One big team.
All right, hello, surprise. Welcome to a very special edition of Riot Act, the alternative music podcast. My name's Stephen Hill, as ever. Still the same name. My co-host's name is still Renfrey Deadman. I can't believe he's still going by that shit.
Such a ridiculous name.
Just
yeah.
one name your whole life.
The
Pathetic.
amount of people who think that Renfrey Deadman is a pseudonym.
Yeah.
Oh, it's embarrassing. But
if I had a pseudonym, it would be Sue Dinham.
That'd be good.
A little bit of comedy to kick off what is a very serious and quite interesting podcast that we have coming up for you today. Usually, of a Friday when we do our weekly show, we review all of the records that are released together as one. But there has been one other occasion when we haven't done that. Last year, we put out a special chat and review of Devin Townsend's fucking excellent Empath record, because we just felt that there was so much going on within that record that it needed its own special podcast all for itself.
I think history's proved us correct.
Yeah.
In that case,
so.
I mean,
love
I
that record.
Still feel like I'm getting a grip on Empath, to be honest. So, you know,
I think that's a hell of a thing, that record.
Yeah.
So occasionally records like that, for whatever reason, they drop, and they are probably worth a very long and detailed discussion. That's fair, isn't it, Renfrey?
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is why today we're giving you this podcast, which is solely dedicated to the fourth album by the Pittsburgh-based hardcore band Code Orange. The record is called Underneath. And later on, after Renfrey and I have finished chatting about the record, you will be able to hear both of us in conversation with Reba and Jamie from the band. We sat down with both of them and we talked about the ins and outs of this record. So definitely do stick around for that, because it was a really good chat.
It was great. Yeah. We had a chat with them. What was it? Was it end of January? Around January sort of time.
It was end of January. It was early morning. We were like the first ones. So we got them when they were, full of enthusiasm for the... It was like 8:45 in the morning. It was pretty fun.
It was really early, yeah. But it was, it was a very, very good chat. And that'll be at the end of this, the audio version of this. We don't have that on video, but if you're watching this on video and you want to hear that, download the fucking audio version as well.
Yeah, dude. Renfrey, let's talk about Code Orange before we get into it, and the path that has led us here to this new record. Code Orange, for me, I think both of us have said it numerous occasions in the past year and a half or however long we've been doing this podcast, just one of the most exciting bands in heavy music. And when we bemoan heavy music, which we have had a tendency to do over the last year and a bit, when we go, it would be really nice to feel like metal and hardcore and punk is doing something new and fresh and exciting. Often, the majority of the time, our fingers point to Code Orange and go, why can't you be more like that?
Well, it just seems to be the natural one to the natural band to point to. After Forever came out, we've said this loads on the show, but after Forever came out, there was a spate of copycat releases from the likes of Jesus Piece, Vane to a degree.
I think maybe in those two bands' cases, copycat feels a little bit harsh. I would say certainly influence. I think, as much as I like to say the Leached album, I think we're getting to the point now where you can hear it on most hardcore bands. Like Leached are a band who are not even necessarily a hardcore band, but yet borrowed heavily. And again, great records. It's probably but they borrowed heavily from the last Code Orange record.
Using the term copycat is probably a little bit harsher than I intend to be. But effectively, it's very difficult to think of a singular record in modern times that has, for better or worse, I think we both agree better, although there are absolutely people out there who think for worse, but that has influenced a scene, a genre, a subgenre so defiantly. It just feels like a whole spate of bands either formed or just changed direction. And predominantly it's this whole thing of trying to get electronics into the a heavy rock, heavy metal. I was trying to avoid saying heavy metal, into a heavy hardcore sound, and make it sound like rather than them just being sprinkled on top and being like a
Weaved
bit
into the fabric
weaved
of
into
it.
the fabric of it. Absolutely, yeah.
I would say the only other record for me in terms of the blatant sort of borrowing of sound in the last decade that Forever had as competition would probably be Sempiternal by Bring Me the Horizon.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
It's obviously very different bands who nicked that sound from Bring Me the Horizon, but when you think of how huge Bring Me the Horizon were playing Wembley Arena in the UK at the end of the Sempiternal run, you know, and they're a big band. So obviously their contemporaries and their peers are probably going to look at that and go, oh yeah, that seems like a sensible thing to do. Code Orange, you know, started this run of Forever being just another hardcore band. I mean, I saw them I saw them 3 or 4 times when I Am King was out. The last time being probably about 6 months before Forever came out, maybe even a little bit less than that. And they were main support to Bane at the Underworld. And then at the end of that run, they were at the Grammys.
Yeah.
I mean, that as an achievement in itself
It's ridiculous.
is fucking mental.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
insane.
And it's something which I don't think a lot of people have really stopped to realise how quick that, not even quick the ascent was, but it was a massive leap which was made
Huge.
unusually through artistic merit
Yeah.
rather than, you know, having the right fingers in the right pies, basically.
Yeah. How did you feel, or how do you feel, I should say, about I Am King at this point as well? 'Cause I think we should go back. That was kind of the first time where I was not aware. I was aware of Code Orange, but it's the first time. I mean, you know, I played the title track from that on the radio at about 7:30 in the morning one day, which didn't go down so well. But I really kind of believed in it at that point.
Yeah.
But I believed in it in as much as I believed in quite a few bands that were around at that point.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good record.
Yeah.
I don't think there were any suggestions that that the leap from I Am King to Forever
would happen
was
necessarily.
definitely going to happen.
Yeah. I went back to I Am King again for the first time in a while after receiving the promo for this record, and it's a really good hardcore record, but
Yeah,
it doesn't really it doesn't give any indication of where Code Orange were going to be 5 to 6 years later.
6 years, yeah.
There are songs on there. I've had a brain fart and I can't remember the name of it, but track 7 on I Am King should remain in their set for the rest of time. I think there are songs which, if they dropped them from that album, I would be bummed out. But having said that, the leaps and bounds that they've made since that record, and I Am King was really well received in the press, like really well, but it was well received in a kind of, this is a really good hardcore record.
Yeah.
It wasn't well received in a, holy shit, this is the future of heavy music way.
Hardcore had no real mainstream. I mean, particularly at that point, hardcore. You could say metalcore did a bit. That kind of modern sounding metalcore that you and I have very limited time for.
Yep.
That had a bit of a presence, although it felt like that was kind of dwindling a bit. You know, when you look at the bands that were tipped, certainly in the UK from around that period, While She Sleeps released Brainwashed, which I still think is probably their best record, didn't really move them on in the way that they were expected to be moved on when This Is the Six came out. And that's just the first one off the top of my head. Obviously, Parkway Drive radically changed style around that period, you know, from
Within the constraints of metal.
Within the constraints of metal. But, you know, they became far less of a metalcore band.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not an obvious, you know, they're drawing from Rage Against the Machine and Iron Maiden and stuff like that.
Just a quick aside, 2 quick asides actually. First aside, that song's actually track 6 and it's My World. Second aside, in your opinion, do you think Parkway Drive or While She Sleeps are as artistically pushing boundaries as much as Code Orange?
No.
Good. Because neither do I.
No.
By a long fucking way.
No. Not. I mean, I have a great deal of love for both of those bands.
Yeah, more. The reason I asked you is because you more so than I do, and I was
really
wondering what you thought about that.
I think I could probably say I like everything both of those bands have ever put out. They're both really great bands, but well, there's the Hope Conspiracy are a really great band. They're not Converge. American Nightmare are really great bands. They're not Converge.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of how I feel about Code Orange at this point. And I think to go on to Forever, I mean, I didn't really see that coming. And it felt like a fucking neutron bomb was just detonated on the metal scene. And it's no coincidence to me that in the aftermath of that, which is, a lot of people have borrowed from the sound of Code Orange, but it's no coincidence to me that so many bands have not just come out and made good records, because we've spoken about See You Space Cowboy, we've spoken about Gift from God, we've spoken about Renounce, we've spoken about Vain, we've spoken about Jesus Piece, we've spoken about Turnstile. I think Turnstile were probably the only band who you could go, they're different enough but unique enough but somehow related by scene alone to feel like they could actually go, could kind of hang with Code Orange for me.
Yeah,
you got Knocked Loose, obviously becoming pretty much one of the biggest ones, which, no offense to not like, I feel like I'm sort of, I double down on like always mentioning Knocked Loose. It's only because I reviewed that record in Metal Hammer. I gave it 8. I think it's a good record. It's what you said about I Am King. It's a good hardcore record, but it'll never be anything more than a good hardcore record to me. And that's not an insult to that. That's not an insult at all.
You're Mr. Hardcore.
I love hardcore. I love hardcore. I'm going to be talking to you about Earth Crisis in about an hour.
You are,
I tell you how fucking brilliant they are. Yeah. But which I'm sure you're really excited about. This is a different thing to me.
Very much so.
And I don't think you can look at the commercial strides that hardcore bands have made and link it back. You can't not link it back to Forever. You can't.
Yes, I think I'd agree. Although how, in the grand terms of the music industry as a whole, taking everything into account, how grand do you think those strides are?
I think they're considerable for what those bands are. Like, I mean, I've had this chat a lot of times over the years that, hardcore has never really had a big mainstream moment. It's never had that. There were times in, obviously, when people talk about go right back to Black Flag and Minor Threat and, the kind of 80s bands, no one was going to, those shows. They were underground shows. Like those shows were pulling in. They weren't on the cover.
Classic example of those shows where 1,000 people say they went, but in reality only 50 people.
Yeah,
did.
of course. Like those were cool shows.
I went to those Black Flag shows.
Did you?
Every single
me
one
too.
of them.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I saw the Black Flag show in Seattle where Buzz from the Melvins was there. All those guys, and then grunge got invented.
Yeah, I think that was a couple of years before I was born, but I was there.
Yeah, I actually was born, which is fucking depressing, but that's not good. I'm glad. But that was never a mainstream thing.
No.
That happened years and years and years later. Like what? It was basically Nirvana, and everyone went back and went, "Oh, we should probably listen to Husker Du." Yes, you should. Right? And you should. Yeah. And then you got that kind of thing in the 90s where it's not really hardcore, but I guess Biohazard had a bit, and they were sort of related, but they're not really properly considered a hardcore band, or Life of Agony. Hung around with those bands, but I wouldn't call either of them strictly hardcore bands.
I wouldn't say they even broke through in a commercial sense either.
No, I mean they
Really?
did some, but they I think comparatively.
Comparatively, sure, but I think my question was in the music industry as a whole. I'm looking at, we're bringing in Taylor Swift here. We're bringing in her.
Okay, fine. And then you've got Hatebreed. I think really the first time you get a hardcore band, again, sick of it all, playing on MTV a bit and signing to a major. It's not really much. Hatebreed were the first band that it felt like lots of people who knew metal knew of and got a bit of hype. And then, you know, I feel like there were a bunch of bands who over the years had little moments where it looked like something might happen. Obviously the Refused Reformation was a big deal.
Yeah, 2 nights at the Forum is not inconsequential.
Let Live got a lot of hype. If you count them as a hardcore band, I'm not really sure if we count them as strictly as a hardcore band. You know?
I view Let Live as a hardcore band, but I understand what you're saying. But yeah.
You know, they're not agnostic front, are they?
No.
What I'm saying. There's more to it than if you're going, I want to start getting into hardcore.
But it depends how broad your idea of hardcore is. You know, I mean, some people will be very narrow, but it really is going to stay in its place if you're going to keep having that attitude. So
there's Gallows, obviously, as well.
Signing for £1 million on Warner Brothers. Mad.
There's post-hardcore, if that counts in the bits and bobs. And then there's sort of nothing, really. Do you know what I mean? There's sort of, I guess we should mention bands who kind of got big after the event. Glassjaw.
Yep.
Again, the Misfits, what they're doing now is obviously far bigger than, are they a hardcore band? Definitely not. But like, you know, it's another example of somebody getting big way after the event. At the Drive, I mean, again, At the Drive, they're not a hardcore band strictly.
Post-hardcore.
So, I mean, we're scrabbling. You know, after
already.
a couple of minutes of trying to think of who are the biggest hardcore band. We're scrabbling because it's just never really happened. I would say, in terms of the popularity they had on a mainstream in the metal scene at large, the biggest ones to me have been Hatebreed.
Yeah, probably.
In like the current thing. Yes, I know you're typing, you're fucking getting me on Twitter going, Black Flag are bigger than... Yeah, Black Flag are bigger than Hatebreed. Yes, I know. But in terms of like, they release an album and lots of people buy it, lots of people go to the shows at that time, I think it would probably be Hatebreed.
Well, as you said, Black Flag and those bands came bigger after the fact, whereas Hatebreed are still a going concern.
Maybe Killswitch Engage as well, if that counts. Again, that's a funny
one. Maybe, yeah.
They're more of a metal band to me,
Yeah.
although I do not discredit their roots in the hardcore scene.
Yeah.
So, hardcore has never had a genuine... Like, this band undoubtedly are a hardcore band, and it's never broken through to the extent of the same way as, I don't know, pop punk or new metal or, you know, grunge or whatever. That's never happened to hardcore before. And you wonder if it's ever going to happen. Do you know what I mean? You sort of go, does that mean it's just not ever going to happen?
I don't wonder if it's ever going to happen, because I don't think it is. Not to put a black mark on this from the beginning, because I want to extol the virtues of this record. But I think the music industry is too different a beast these days for anything to push through into a major way. And even when things do push through in a major way, they do so in 2 seconds and then they're gone again, because there is so much. Does anything really properly break big anymore in the way that it used to?
Not in the way that it used to. I think it's a different type of thing. I think hardcore as a scene, metal as a scene, it might be difficult. Do you know what I watched yesterday? Which is relative. It's just sort of popped into my head. I watched Life After Death from Above 1979, which is a documentary on Amazon Prime about Death from Above 1979.
Nice.
Death from Above 1979 played for like 18 months as a band and then split up. And then came back and they're playing Brixton Academy. They're playing Coachella
I saw them
under Duran Duran.
Yeah.
So it's like Kanye West, Duran Duran, Death from Above 1979 at Coachella on the main stage. That's their comeback show.
Yeah.
Right? Fucking mad. Again, that's a band who obviously their legend kind of grew as they're away. But they only released one album. So we don't really know what potentially could have happened to them. And I look at an oddity of a band like Death from Above 1979 and I just think, well, you're so weird
Yeah.
That you
they are.
might have just gone, well, we exist totally in isolation from everything else. Yeah, we're a bit punk. Yeah, we're a bit rock and roll. Yeah, we're a bit sort of garage rock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're this weird duo with a singing drummer and a bass player, and that's it. And we've done all these sort of weird dance remixes of our songs. It's weird enough for people to really latch onto it. And I only say that because I do feel the same about Code Orange. I do think that they're unusual enough, even within a scene that is desperately trying to copy them, to be kind of an ocean that people who don't care about this scene or this music will go, yeah, but they're good. Like, you look at the rappers and the grime artists that are repping Code Orange t-shirts, that are, you know, shouting them out. You look at the type of people who are retweeting the songs from this album when it came out. You look at the fact that, you know, Bray Wyatt from the WWE got them to write their themes, his theme song for them, right? That's an unusual thing for...
Yeah. It's certainly things that people don't give them credit for. I mean, if anything, if you like, I don't know if this is your experience, Steve, but like when talking to other bands about Code Orange, in many, many ways, they are, by other bands, they're one of the most hated bands in the world. And
I've had two different types of experiences with talking about Code Orange and other bands, and that is what you're saying, and people who are scared of them.
Yeah.
Kind of scared of them. And I think actually the people that hate them, I think there are people who go, oh my God, they're so good, I wouldn't be able to be in the same room with them. To give him a shout out here, I hope he doesn't mind this, but Will from Black Peaks, when they played Brixton Academy, we kind of, because I know some of the people at Roadrunner and stuff are very nice, they gave us really nice passes and stuff, and we kind of went up, and I went to kind of knock and be like, hi to Code Orange, and Will was like, oh, I don't know if I can meet them. They're quite intimidating and stuff. But he loves them. He fucking loves them. But he did feel genuinely like, I feel quite intimidated by meeting this band. And I was like, mate, you're like fucking 6-7 years older than them.
Yeah.
You're on Radio 1.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
They're not, you know, you should be walking in the UK. Black Peaks are at least as big. Probably bigger than
in the UK. In the UK, at the moment, as we record this, Black Peaks are bigger than Code Orange.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean,
at the moment, that
soon.
may well change, but at the moment they are bigger. Yeah.
And yet, Will kind of walked in and was like, "Hi," like a fan.
Right.
It's mad.
But
it's because you listen to it and you like go,
how do you do that?
How do you do that?
I don't want to give the impression that all bands like hate them or anything like that. But yeah, I totally agree. You either get other bands are either in awe of what they're doing and think it's absolutely fucking amazing, or just dismiss them and will come up with some sort of like,
I want to talk about that a little bit later.
Oh, we definitely will. Kind of excuse to dismiss them and say that it's rubbish. And look, Code Orange are not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but all brilliant music, all brilliant art is not for everyone. And I do think those that dismiss them out of hand
The old green-eyed monster.
are just... I think they're just jealous. I really, really do.
It's not often that I think when you slag something off, it means, oh, you must be jealous. It's not often that I think that. I think that's usually...
I agree.
It's usually a really lazy thing. Like when you go, oh, Ollie Murs is a wanker. People go, oh, you're so jealous. It's like, oh, I don't want to be Ollie Murs.
No,
who
wants to be Ollie Murs?
I'll sit next to Will.i.am on The Voice. No, thanks.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
No,
But
I definitely want to do that. But in this instance...
Yeah.
They're looking at Code Orange and they're going, you're really difficult and weird and everyone seems to be flocking to you. And I'm in a heavy band too. And why am I not?
Well, that's kind of why I bring it up because, you know, some of those bands that I'm talking... I mean, I'm not going to name any of them. But some of those bands
I will
I'm
later
talking
on.
about...
There was one in particular that I am going to name later on.
Uh-oh.
Not in a nasty way. I like the band, but I just think it's this. So
Okay.
We'll talk about it later.
But some of them, you know, I, for example, I know people who, I'm often asked, you know, what are records that I need to check out. It's very, very, very early in the year, But people have asked me, what are your favourite records of the year so far? Now, this is not me declaring anything in terms of 2020 or anything like that, because it is only the beginning of March as we talk.
Yeah.
But the first thing that I say in terms of 2020 records, and at the moment, my favourite record of the year by far is this new Code Orange record. And when people ask me what is coming up soon that they need to check out, first thing out of my mouth for the last 2 months we've had this, has been Code Orange.
Yep.
And the reaction is either like, oh, I can't wait for that record, or, oh, come on, that's not your album of the year. Like, as in literally, people go, come on. I've even been accused by some bands who have been on this podcast of I gave Forever was my album of the year when I was at the Independent.
Yep.
And a member of a band said that I asked, I think jovially, but asked if Roadrunner had given me a cash payout to give them album of the year, which, you know,
I want to get into this now, actually.
That kind of thing historically happened in the music industry. I absolutely assure you, these days, I reckon in the majority of the 21st century, just doesn't happen.
No.
It doesn't happen. And, you know, there'll be people who'll be like, well, of course you would say that. No, it doesn't happen.
A mad thing to think.
It just, there isn't the money in the industry anymore for that to happen. And if bands or PRs or managers or it usually is PRs or managers or whatever, but if they do try to sort of sway you in a way, it will be nice seats, or it will be, do you want to go over to Germany to review them?
Motley Crue mug.
etc. You know,
which worked, to be fair.
It won't be a cash. It won't be a cash payout. It won't be a little money, and you know. So just to clear that up, and I, you know, the person who accused me of that, I made sure that he knew full well that was not what happened at all.
Well, here's my thoughts on this. Right, is that Code Orange exist in. When I say Code Orange exists in a unique spot, this is what I mean about this, right? Is that I was on Apple Music after we reviewed the Sightless Pit record last week, which you should go and listen to. It's excellent. A fucking great record, right? It is members of The Body, A Full of Hell, and Linguita Ignota getting together and making just a really horrible noise, right? Now, it was called like Dark Noise or something on Apple Music, and it's a playlist, really cool playlist, had loads of just very discordant, horrible, kind of nasty sounding, sludgy metal bands, some gothy bands, some like stuff like Justice, which, you know, who I really like, I've been a fan for ages. So, you know, like electronic music as well, but all of it was really kind of cool, cutting edge, dark, harsh music, right? And underneath the title track from this record was on that playlist, right? So they were existing,
which is one of the most commercial songs on this record.
Yeah, Throbbing Gristle, Suicide, bands like that. Like it went all the way back to Bauhaus, stuff like that on it as well, right? And Code Orange sat comfortably amongst those bands and amongst something as abrasive and vile sounding and hurtful as Sightless Pit, right? And even as you said, one of the most commercial sounding songs on this record sat comfortably amongst that playlist. Right now, you couldn't take any other of those songs on that playlist and put that in a playlist of, you know, modern metal, radio, mainstream classics. You couldn't stick that with Bring Me the Horizon or Five Finger Death Punch. You couldn't stick any of those other bands in that playlist. You could stick this song in with that playlist.
Very astute.
People forget the type of music that got them into heavy music in the first place.
Absolutely,
right?
they do.
You know, we can sit here as I'm 40 in a few weeks. You're in your 30s. We speak to a lot of people in our mid to late 30s, and a lot of them go, "Well, I like Converge now. Or I like, Oathbreaker now. I like this, whoever. I like, the Armed or whatever. They're the best band. And this, it's a bit too commercial. It's a bit too blah 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 blah. Like, don't you think it's a bit silly that they've done? Like, you can say all that shit as much as you want. Like, it's catchy and it's melodic and it's got like, I need stuff that's far more challenging than this. And you can be snobby about it. You didn't get into Napalm Death or your first metal bands were not Napalm Death or Emperor or Celtic Frost or fucking Neurosis or Today's a Day or any of those bands. They were Linkin Park. They were Papa Roach. They were System of a Down. They were Megadeth. They were Megadeth, a challenging band, but a band who can be played on the radio.
Yeah, Metallica,
Iron Maiden,
Priest.
Guns N' Roses, Judas Priest. All of these bands are big. Like, they're the bands that you first got into when you got into metal, right? Now, there seems to have been over the last decade or so this flip where there is commercial sounding mainstream metal, which artistically does nothing for most people. And for us included, right? We're very rarely nice about the very, very biggest, most popular releases in mainstream metal, right? It doesn't happen very often. No. We like the last Slipknot album. We both thought that was pretty good.
Yep.
We like... does Tool count? I suppose Tool counts. Really nice.
I think we have to count Tool at this point.
Count Tool. But bands that have been around for fucking ever. When you think of the really big bands...
We liked the last Korn record.
Like the last Korn record.
Much more than I thought we would.
A band who have been around for fucking ever. When you think of who are the big, much more modern bands, I like Parkway Drive a lot, hell of a lot. Bring Me, I like bits of. It's been a long time now. You're thinking like 7-8 years since they put out something which I actually really like. That being Sempiternal.
Yeah.
Bands like Asking Alexandria, no.
Absolutely not.
Bands like, we spoke about Five Finger Death Punch last week. I kind of have a grudging amount of respect for the fact that Five Finger Death Punch have managed to turn themselves into this, kind of huge cartoony, loony band that, sort of... But is it artistic? Do I want to listen to it at home? Does it excite me? No, not really.
There was a sort of grudging respect for them getting where they have got, but in terms of artistic merit, I don't think either of us think Five Finger Death Punch are any good at all.
Ditto someone like Alter Bridge. Yeah. And yet those bands are huge, right? They're not musically interesting, but they're fucking huge. But it used to be that, you look behind us, Type O Negative selling millions of records, Metallica and Justice for All, playing arenas on that record, right? Yeah. Fucking so awesome. Like, it's just, you listen back to System of a Down and how weird they were, listen to Ministry or Nine Inch Nails or any of those bands, and you go, there was a period where you could be both musically interesting and unique and yet catchy and inclusive.
Yeah.
And everybody would go, that this sounds great.
And this is the reason, like, I imagine, I said before we started this that, like, you've been talking about this record almost every single week this record has come up. It has been talked about a lot. And some people were probably already fed up of us talking about this album. But the reason why we bang on about it is exactly that. There are so few bands who have a chance of breaking through to some sort of commercial appeal. I think you have more faith in that happening with Code Orange than I do, which is nothing, to be clear, nothing to do with Code Orange. It's to do with how the industry is, but, we'll see. But a band who are potentially able to do that and who are artistically pushing things to a ridiculous degree, actually, if as much as, if not more so, than bands in the underground. These days, when does that ever happen? It hardly ever happens. And that is the reason why we wang on and on and on and on about Code Orange.
Yeah.
Because they are one of the only examples currently in the world, it's certainly in heavy music, who are actually pushing things in an artistic direction in a really exciting way, whether you like it or not. It's undoubtedly not been done to this degree before. And they might have an opportunity, I mean, I don't know. What sort of venues do you think they could do with
I
this
think if they
record?
came back to the UK, they'd play the Electric Ballroom, which is 800 capacity, and I think they'd sell it out. On the strength of this record, once people hear this record, and we haven't even started talking about the record yet.
No, we haven't,
in a second. I think, there is an opportunity for that to happen. I think that bands, some of the bands that have gotten to that level over time, Gojira, Lamb of God. I mean, there are these outliers of bands who, I don't really think Lamb of God are as artistically interesting as Code Orange. I think Gojira have a shot at, but the difference between, say, so here's what I was going to say. So here's the difference for me between Code Orange could make an album that it sounds like Meshuggah worship, and it would be really, really technical and really loud and really like a head fuck, and you'd probably listen to it and go, wow, what a head fuck, right? But Meshuggah couldn't make this record.
Absolutely, I agree.
Right? And not to call him out at all. I mean, I know I am doing this, but not to call him out as like you arsehole or anything, because I don't even know him. But I saw the bass player from Botch. From Bosk, not Botch. The bass player from Bosk.
Tom Beckley.
Tweeted, new Code Orange sounds like bad Spine Shank. Mm-hmm. When Bosk can make a record with this level of ambition, I will listen and entertain tweets like that. I'm sure, don't get me wrong, Bosk are a good band, right? Bosk are a good band.
Bosk are a wonderful band.
Bosk are a very good band. Bosk could make this record, but Code Orange can make a Bosk record. Yes, they could.
I don't know, actually.
I think they could. And I think it's more of a challenge to be able to make
I certainly think it's more of a challenge to make this record than it is to make, say, Audio Noir, which is a fucking phenomenal album.
Great record. They are a great band, but I don't like this kind of snobby, you want to, there is absolutely no commercial appeal at all in Bosk's music, and that's fine. That's fine. You are never going on tour with System of a Down. You are never going on tour with Slipknot. You are never playing headlining more than about 300 or 400 people. That's cool. I love loads of bands that do that. That's absolutely fine. And if you want to stay in your little bubble of underground hardcore brilliantness, that's absolutely fine as well. But let's not shit on a band who don't want that.
Well,
let's not shit on a band who are going, actually, no, we could stay and headline the Underworld forever. Like Madball, come around every December and play the Underworld, and it sometimes be sold out and sometimes be 3/4 full. We could be like Unearth, play to the Underworld in 20 years' time to 15 people. We could do that.
Yeah.
Or we could take a fucking punt at actually doing something which is going to appeal to not just fucking metal fans. And this is the thing that this is why I have a modicum more belief, obviously quite a great deal more belief in Code Orange than you do, because you're looking at it going, will metal fans accept this? Will metal fans take this? What will rock fans, what will hardcore fans think about this? And there'll be a lot of those kind of snidey, I'm in a wear the same clothes that I wear all day band who play in front of 200 people, and we're a post rocky band with absolutely no commercial aspiration whatsoever. Ergo, we're better than this quote unquote sell out mainstream whatever, right? Which is just such fucking nonsense that I can't be bothered to really entertain it. So I think there will be a backlash from a lot of metal fans. What I think Code Orange will do, and I genuinely believe this because I've listened to this record on headphones, and I've not heard a metal band be produced like this. And we spoke the other week about Nova Twins and Horror and these bands who are apparently melding electronics with metal and taking hip hop and taking pop.
Yeah, they are doing that.
They are.
They
yes.
are doing
but,
that.
Yeah, sorry. I say apparently. They are doing that. But nobody has done it with the level of expertise that Code Orange have done. I think if you play Horror to somebody who likes JPEG Mafia or Clipping, they go, what's that? I think if you go to Coachella and try and put the Nova Twins on, people go, they're a rock band. Those people who are into that sort of thing go, that's a rock band. Because that's what they sound like. They sound like rock bands. I know you like Fever 333, a hell of a lot more than me. I think most people do. But Fever 333, to me, they sound like a rock band. They sound like a rock band incorporating elements of other things. There are moments on this record where Code Orange sound more like an electronic band and more like a modern hip hop band than they sound like a rock band. The guitars and the drums are played like 90s Roadrunner record, heavy as fuck, Sepultura, Type of Negative, Life of Agony, that Fear Factory, that shit that I fucking love. And God bless them for bringing that style back. But there are also moments on it. I mean, there's a bit in, I was listening to it today, and the song track 3, In Fear, right? You put it on headphones, there's a bit where it breaks down and it just does this thing, and I don't know what it is. It just goes, whoa, 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 whoa. It sounds like someone, like a didgeridoo or something, but it's like an electronic didgeridoo. And I was like, and it's such a small thing, and you don't even notice it when you first hear it because it's got like this bass line alongside it. But I was like, that sounds like something from, like, when I try and listen to modern hip hop artists, I hear that weird shit in the background, and I hear it like sounding like that. And I've never listened to a metal record or a rock record that is trying to incorporate hip hop and gone, oh, you sound like JPEG Mafia.
In the words of Fox Mulder, I want to believe, and I want this to be. I'd love nothing more than for this to explode and for a band.
I'm not necessarily saying that this is going to explode. All I'm saying is they're playing Coachella, right? They're playing Coachella, and they are going to people who like SoundCloud rappers and fucking modern hip hop and those angry, like I mean, I've seen videos of like Travis Scott shows, massive festival bills where people are losing their shit, and people are going to look at Code Orange and feel far more who are into shit like that, and they're going to feel far more like, yeah, I get this, than they are Rage Against the Machine. They just are.
I think you are misrepresenting how much the average Joe on the street doesn't like screamed vocals, and I say this with no joy whatsoever, because I would love this to be massive.
A lot of this modern hip hop, like a lot of it is
not in this. It's aggressive, but it's not screamed.
Some of
it's aggressive. Aggressive is people can deal with aggression. They can't deal with screams. Yeah. And there is, to be clear, actually, there's a lot of melodic stuff on this record. There is a lot of melodic stuff on this record. The hooks
all over the fucking place.
There are hooks all over the place. But that is why I really want to stress this. I would love to see this go massive outside of the rock and metal world. I have doubts, not because of Code Orange's ability or Roadrunner's ability or anything like that. I have doubts because I have no faith in humanity. So to be super clear, I mean, I know the Code Orange guys are going to listen to this, and I want to make that really fun. And I'm not just saying that because I want to pander down to Jamie or Reba or whatever. I do believe that it is people's fault. Not Code Orange's fault.
Mate,
but
listen,
I
don't think they're going to be. I don't think every single person who likes Travis Scott or Kendrick Lamar. I mean, Kendrick Lamar's a pretty ridiculous person to bring up anyway in terms of how fucking heavy this is in comparison to his music. But I don't think anyone, like. I don't. Yes, you're right. I don't think that everybody who likes that type of thing is going to hear this and is going to go fucking crazy for it, and they're all going to flock to Code Orange. But a few might.
I think some might, and them getting on Coachella is wonderful.
And I think there's enough of those people who like what they're doing. I mean, fucking Marilyn Manson turned up at a hip hop all dayer recently and was lauded like some kind of god, right? You look at the artwork and the imagery that these people are putting out, and that's as important. And the other thing about Code Orange, which again, just got out the van, just woke up and pulled a t-shirt on, bands just don't seem to get, is that they think about every minute, tiny, you can tell.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, again, it's not a coincidence we've got this Type of Negative vinyl up here. Type of Negative, like I was watching a documentary about Typo recently, and it was saying about how Pete Steele would sit down and spend 4 hours looking at the exact shade of green that he wanted for each Type of Negative album.
Right.
They'd sit down, and have 40, 50, 60 different shades of green, and he'd be looking at it, and that kind of...
just through talking to them, they definitely put that level
of just obsessive, compulsive unwillingness to compromise on anything just absolutely permeates through everything Code Orange do. And, you know, and you can fucking hear it on this record. You can fucking hear it.
You can. And I mean, I think I would love, and I hope that in the UK, in London, by the end of the Underneath cycle, I think it would be fucking wonderful and potentially realistic for Code Orange to headline the Forum.
Yep.
And this record is more than worthy of being the material that should take them there. I mean, you know, if the world were right and everything was wonderful, then they'd be the biggest band in the world. But, you know, I think that could realistically happen.
Yeah.
Potentially. And I think they'd absolutely deserve that, probably minimum, to be honest. And there are massive hooks. I mean, something that occurred to me re-listening to this record today, the wonderful thing with the hooks on this record, there are quite a lot of vocal hooks, especially from Reba. I mean, Reba's contribution to this record is fucking immense. Yeah. It's wonderful. But sometimes the hooks come from the most unexpected places. There's a song where Jamie's cymbals are the hook in a kind of I'm trying to just find it now. Oh, there's a hook on It's You and You Alone, and there's this sort of cymbal beat, for want of a better word.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I've never heard anyone turn a drum part into a hook in the same way, bar Dave Grohl with Nirvana predominantly, but also kind of with Queens a little bit, but with Nirvana, and Joey Jordison to a degree. It reminded me of Pulse of the Maggots a little bit in the cymbal bits with that. But like, there are very few.
The Rev from Avenged Sevenfold. I mean, I
don't listen to Avenged enough to
I think
really
he's
know.
got a lot of like interesting, and so's Lars Ulrich, to be fair.
Oh, actually, Lars is a fair shout, but okay.
But that's more of. I mean, what you're talking about. I mean, Lars does da 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 da, and again with Dave Grohl, you're talking about the
yeah.
Whereas that is more like it's like the start of like Fix Up Look Sharp by Dizzy Rascal.
Yeah.
That's the
hook is half a second long.
Yeah.
Whereas with In Bloom with In Bloom, the drum hook is ba, 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 ba. You know, it's quite a long extended hook. But like my whole point in getting into this anal detail about what they're able to do is they create hooks from places where other bands are totally and utterly incapable of creating hooks from. Or when I say other bands, what I actually mean is only the absolute best. So, you know, you named a couple of other drummers, but there aren't many drummers who make hooks, really.
Not really.
Phil
Vinnie
Collins. I love how different those examples
Phil Collins and Vinnie Paul. Is that the first time they've ever been compared in the same sentence? It might be.
But they do, yeah. Vinnie Paul's a great shout. Phil Collins, you know, but that Cadbury's
Bonham,
advert.
I think John Bonham's got a few as well, hasn't he?
Bonham, yeah. But look at listen to the fucking drummers we're naming. We're literally naming the best drummers ever to do it in modern music. You know? Yeah. It's astonishing.
I had a chat. I hope you don't mind again me calling him out, but Merlin Alderslade from Metal Hammer went, there's not really many hooks, because I was saying, you know, this is the thing that I feel that modern metal really lacks, and Merlin was like, there's not really many hooks on this record. I was
nonsense.
like, are you fucking mad?
That's nonsense.
Are you fucking mad? I can't believe anyone could listen to this. And I mean, the thing is like you say, they pull hooks from places where you don't
least
really
expect them.
And I mean, when Chop Suey comes out, Be Quiet and Drive comes out, like Here to Stay, fucking Duality, I honestly think something like those songs have a hook. Like The Easy Way has a hook that is comparable to those songs. That fucking chorus.
I think there's a small difference in that the first time I put this record on, it's one of those moments where I'm like, right, I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life. You know, like I remember what I was doing when I first heard Nevermind. Oh, you know, it's but secondly, it was such a clusterfuck of sound. I was just like, whoa, what the fuck is this? And I On a first listen, would I have been able to pick out a hook? No. On a second, maybe one or two.
Do you not think you'd been able to pick up like Sulphur Surrounding in the easy way?
It was just such an on listen number one. It was such an onslaught of like, what the
But I
fuck?
still think, like, for me personally, I definitely felt that, and I was sitting there going, I can't believe this is happening. Because before we really get into the record, we should say Renfrew and I did our top 20 albums of the decade at the end of last year. Forever was my number 3, and it was your number 7.
Yes,
Right.
It was
and in
both
terms
top
of
10.
metal, it was, and hardcore. I mean, I guess you compared Let Live as a hardcore band.
Yeah.
So Let Live were the only band who kind of were on par,
Who
or
were vaguely comparable,
above or slightly above that record. Now, I went into this record going, obviously, I can't really imagine they can top Forever. I can't really imagine that's possible. And I felt that Forever was a hardcore record, definitely a hardcore record, and a hardcore record the likes of which had never really been recorded. A genuinely unique hardcore record, in the same way as The Shape of Punk to Come is a genuinely unique hardcore record, to the point where it's only just hardcore because it is so weird and so different and so unusual and so that. I'm not sure underneath. There's just too much other stuff happening for me to comfortably be able to sit here and go, this is a hardcore record. I don't think it is.
I still think it is. I just think my idea of what hardcore is broader, and I think people's idea of hardcore should be pushed out further with this album.
Sure, but I think there's so much. It feels way more. There's not a lot of. When I listen to it, I mean, Refused aside, my references for it, not much of it is hardcore. Like, hardly any of it is really. You know, I mentioned Typo Negative. I think there's loads of Typo Negative on it. I think it's got the doomy kind of grungy chords. It's got the kind of the overall anarchic songwriting feel that Typo Negative had, that kind of, you know, unique, unmistakable. You know how Typo Negative, you listen to them and you go, who knows how and where this song will end? At the start, you go, I really don't know.
I have no idea where it's going to go.
And Code Orange do that. And I mean, Code Orange did that on Forever.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been really, really easy of them to try and just repeat the tricks of Forever. I mean, on Underneath, which is the title track and the last song, I mean, famously on Forever, they just cut out halfway through a sentence, pretty much. It was like in the album just stops. And I thought for a minute, oh, they're going to do that again. And I'm kind of glad.
Too obvious.
Yeah, too obvious.
Too obvious.
Then it becomes a trope of theirs, it becomes a thing that they do, and they don't do it.
I think this is the beautiful thing about this record. Rather than, let's take the Reva song. So there's a lot of great Reva songs with her melodic vocals, which, you know, the obvious commercial move for this album would be, let's write 5 Bleeding in the Blurs.
Yeah.
And there are melodic songs on this album where Reva takes center stage and she does the lead vocal on them, but I wouldn't call any of them a retread of Bleeding in the Blur.
No, I don't.
And I think there will be reviewers who do. I think there will be reviewers who say
Sulphur Surrounding is
Sulphur Surrounding. Yeah. You know, I think there will be, but to be honest, those reviewers are lazy, and it is an incredibly simplistic way to look at it and view it. And that's the whole thing with this record. Code Orange have clearly gone, Forever is the starting point. Like, whatever happens on Forever is the bare minimum in terms of quality.
Yeah.
And we need to build upon this and make it better and better and better. And something you'll hear in the interview, Jamie I don't want to talk about stuff that happens in the interview too much, because hopefully if you're listening to this, you'll be listening to it immediately after. But Jamie does mention how they do not stop until they get the sound that is in their heads. They continue to try and figure that out until they have this idea in their heads. And I think so many bands have an idea in their heads and try to get it on record, but just stop and never get to put on wax, put on record, put on digital tape the sound that is inside their head.
Yeah,
and the difference between Code Orange and most other bands is Code Orange do not stop until the
they
sound...
wouldn't release it unless it sounds
Exactly.
like what they want it
They
to sound
don't
like.
stop until... And now, you can go, well, they've got the resources to do that, bloody, bloody, blah. I mean, yeah and no.
They're hardly the 1975.
They're hardly... Yeah, you know. But, you know... I suppose they do have more resources than some bands, but they fucking earned it.
Yeah.
They have been doing this for a long time. They're not a flash in the pan new band, you know.
What I love about it, again, to go back to kind of where modern metal is at the moment, again, to bring up Bring Me the Horizon, for example. Bring Me the Horizon have clearly gone, we can go in a pop direction by kind of just sort of saying we're still a metal band and occasionally writing a riff on a song, but mostly kind of really trying to be a pop band. Now, I don't think this whole like, oh, it's the future and we should embrace pop music because that's what metal has become. That's such bollocks to me. That's such nonsense. And you hear this record and it is proof positive of why it's nonsense. Because, like I say, the kind of bands that I know that band listened to, those 90s alt metal bands, Nine Inch Nails, Typo Negative, I'll say them again, Life of Agony, Helmet, Danzig, fucking Prong, shit like that, right? That's what this sounds like. Fear Factory.
Absolutely.
Right? Deftones. I mean, there's none of that in most of this modern metal. It all sounds digitally processed.
Yeah.
Like, the thing that is just blows my fucking mind about this record is that the production is so much better and so much more cutting edge on all the kind of electronics and the bits that exist around and inside and underneath the guitars and the drums. It sounds so much more cutting edge than something like Bring Me the Horizon. Yeah. It sounds so much more forward thinking than something like, you know, horror or whatever. But the guitars and the drums sound like fucking Sepultura.
That's the thing. It's this
They
beautiful...
sound like this, and I don't mean it as in like, oh, it sounds dated and old. They sound classic. They sound like what you want metal to sound like. They actually sound fucking heavy.
It's this beautiful amalgam of making it sound like a band playing in a room together, but at the same time it having this
remixed by the most cutting edge producer in the world.
Yeah, pretty much. It has this modern digital edge and all the modern kind of like, you know, like glitches and all that kind of thing. I mean, if you weren't a fan of the glitches and stuff on Forever, they've just chucked even more of that in. But like, it feels like bands are still trying to catch up with all the glitching and things that were happening in Forever. I mean, with this record, they've just
their hooks. A lot of them now.
Yeah. They've just pushed it even further.
I mean, Forever, like I said before, was a fucking neutron bomb of a record. It blew heavy music and it blew hardcore into places which no one really could have seen. Now, this feels much more like evolution to me than revolution. They haven't chucked the baby out of the bathwater. They haven't done the obvious thing. They've continued to go down a fairly sort of similar path with things added on. They've changed the way that things sound to make everything sound better, to make it sound newer, to make it sound beefier, to make it sound more precise. I think the songwriting, I mean, you know, there are bits of like, I listened to this and Forever back to back because I have to say, my first listen to it, I was halfway through and I was like, this is a fucking head fuck. Like, I don't know what the fuck's going on, but I think it's amazing. And then the second time round, probably it got to, I mean, the easy way is just such a fucking tune. I mean, people say there's no fucking hooks on it. Don't wanna know what you're... That is I mean, that song's as massive can possibly be.
If you're saying there's no hooks on this, you're not listening.
It's fucking nuts. That song is nuts. And I got to that point, and it, you know, Sulphur Surrounding, which is, you know, this kind of slow, brooding, almost Alice in Chainsy, mixed with, I mean, I'm struggling to even come up with what it's mixed with, but mixed with, again, this kind of modern sounding electronic pulse that sort of sits beneath it. you go from that into the easy way, from Cold Metal Place into Suffer Surrounded into the easy way.
The middle of this record is I think it's unbelievable. I think the quality of this album throughout is extraordinarily high, and I love the whole thing, to be honest. I think a sign of a classic album, a sign of an album that is absolutely phenomenal, is when your favourite song changes all of the time. My favourite song has been A Rager Scan, Who I Am, A Sliver, Cold Metal Place, The Easy Way, Back Inside the Glass. It's been
Not even mentioned Autumn and Carbon.
I haven't even known.
Fucking unbelievable. Like, again, that...
My point is my favourite song on this record has been most of them at one point or another, which is just a sign of a phenomenal record.
Yeah.
I think in terms of all the influences and the conglomeration... invented word. That just came out. People say, old fuddy-duddies say that there is nothing new in music anymore. Every note has been played, every chord has been played, yada, 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 yada. There is a modicum of truth to that, realistically. But bands make original music these days in the 21st century by melding so many different influences together in a way that you have never heard before. And that's how you make truly original, inspiring, interesting new music. It occurred to me that if you set someone the challenge of genuinely writing down every single influence that they hear live, listening along to the record, their hand would probably drop off. I mean, it is literally every few seconds. There's a bit of Nine Inch Nails. There's a bit of Type O Negative. There's a bit of, fucking Deftones. There's a bit of... It is just... And it's conglomerated in such a seamless, incredible way that it makes something totally new. Totally
when
unique.
You're picking up... I mean, even... Those are all rock bands.
Yeah, yeah.
I hear fucking, Lotus Eater and Aphex Twin... and like I say, Clipping and JPEG Mafia, and
absolutely,
it feels totally. And the idea of going, we love metal when it was fucking great and interesting and genuinely heavy and weird and unique, right? We love the kind of the precursor to new metal, if you like, those old metal bands. I mean, you said the other week about something I thought was very astute about Metallica, when you're saying Five Finger Death Punch's frame of reference and their influences are very narrow, right? Whereas Metallica are influenced by Discharge and Bark.
I said Discharge to Bark,
Discharge to Bark.
And everything else in between.
Everything else in the middle, right? And you're quite right. I mean, admittedly, that ain't what got Metallica big.
No.
Not really, really, really big.
No, but
big,
undoubtedly
but
those...
big.
Yeah. I mean, people attribute it to Cliff Burton all the time, and I think Cliff Burton bringing in those really broad influences is the reason those first four Metallica albums, and I am including Justice because he has writing credits on it, are the best.
And then, you look at the span of influences of System of a Down, from Slayer and the Dead Kennedys to Armenian folk music, right?
Absolutely.
Now, there has been such a lack of stuff that's come out in metal that hasn't just been influenced by metal.
Absolutely.
And, whether it be all the very best metal bands, you go back to Black Sabbath and what they were influenced by, the blues and their surroundings and the Beatles, and do you know what I mean? Like that meld of all that stuff. You look at, even though they're not my favourite band, you look at Iron Maiden and the stuff that influenced Iron Maiden. You look at the stuff, as I said, that influenced Metallica, the amount of stuff that influenced Deftones, right? The amount of stuff that would have influenced Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails. And then you look at, again, it feels like it's an album that we shit on, and it's a good album, The Death Atlas by Cattle Decapitation. It's a good album, right? I know I feel like I'm a cunt for bringing it up all the time. It is a good album. It's a really good death metal album. But people who are going, oh my God, it's a revolution. It's a death metal album with singing. It's like, well, they've written some fucking great death metal songs, and he's got a really weird, unique voice. Yeah. Definitely. They're really good songwriters. They write really good riffs. But it's frankly, a great death metal album.
As an outsider, I think if you were an outsider looking in and you heard people saying that this is a revolutionary record in metal terms and you listened to it, I think that would be embarrassing. Yeah. Which is why I try to be like, shut up. Don't say that's a revolutionary record, because it fucking ain't. It's a great death metal record. But that's it. That's it. It isn't anything more. But Code Orange, if people came from the outside and looked at this and said, this is revolutionary, I would proudly hold this up as something which is genuinely different and unique and interesting and genuinely progressive. And yeah, I think that's why, you know, and those are the bands that piss people off the most. And this is why we have this kind of like, I wonder if the sort of hatred towards Code Orange and the love towards Code Orange is just going to build even further and further and build even more. But you know what? It should do, because the best bands have that love-hate dynamic in terms of people who look at them and like, do you know, you either love it or it's Marmite, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
I think that probably will happen. I feel like we haven't really spoken about, I mean, we've touched on needless to say, the record is incredible. And I want everybody just like, when I want to fucking harness that spirit of Iowa, when Iowa got to number 1, harness that spirit of like, when it just felt like there are times where everybody would get behind a record and go, this is everything that fucking heavy music should be.
Can be and should be.
And I haven't felt like that. I mean, even on Forever, I was like, if you're in on it, if we're all together, this album's fucking great. It's so great. And like I said, I listened to these two back to back. Forever is still amazing, right? It's fucking amazing. I was having this conversation. I'm going to bring this up, right? New Metal Hammer, my review of this album. This is the first time in 5 years Metal Hammer's given a 10 to a record, right? It's only the second time in the last decade. I wrote that review and I thought long and fucking hard about whether or not I should give this record a 10. And I'm telling you now, Renfrey, for my personal tastes and what I want, and at this moment in time, thinking back on the last decade, I would probably give 3 records a 10.
In
3
metal
records.
or ever?
Probably ever. I think Her Name Is Kala. It's probably a 10.
Yeah.
I think Black is Beautiful for me is a 10.
Yeah. I'd say Fake History, but fine.
Yeah. And Dosage Dreams are 10s. That is an undoubted 10. Dosage Dreams is an undoubted 10 for me. Absolutely undoubted. There are a bunch of other records which I think objectively I'd go, yeah, I can see, like the Satanist, for example. I think Satanist probably is a 10, right? I don't love it. I love it, but I don't love it to the extent as I love those other 3 records, right? I would have been kind of maybe possibly, Forever is a 10 before. Like Rare by Oathbreaker, I think would be pushing a 10. That would be another one for me. But there aren't many records that I would feel comfortable just going, that's a fucking 10. Those 3 that I just mentioned, Her Name Is Kala, Let Live, Fucked Up, they're 10s, like definitely. And there are other things outside of metal that I don't have as strong. Something like Skeleton Tree, I think, is probably a 10, right? I don't have as strong a relationship with it, but it's probably a 10.
Yeah.
But I felt very, very strongly after giving 5, 6, 7 listens to this, it started to dawn on me that not only do I think, objectively speaking, this is undeniably better than Forever.
I knew that this album was better than Forever halfway through my first listen. I couldn't put my finger on... I couldn't get a grasp on the record at all, but I knew it was better than Forever before I'd even finished my first listen.
And I think that is... Like, for me to say that, I don't say that with any degree of, like, flippancy.
No.
At all. Right? I genuinely, I think Forever was, like I described it, as a neutron bomb. Right? And for what it's done to hardcore, for what it did to Code Orange's career, what a fucking record. What an amazing achievement that is. But certainly, objectively speak, if you even, like, I mean, I'll get into the emotional about how I genuinely do think it is better, and I feel like I want to listen to it more, having listened to them back to back. Totally emotionlessly, objectively speaking, there is no argument to be had. that this is a better made record. Absolutely no doubt whatsoever. The songwriting is better. The production, it is purely for the production, which is fucking staggering. Staggering.
It is self-produced, but there are also a couple of other producers. Chris Yips come in.
Chris
Frenner does programming.
Yeah.
He's not producing, but but Chris Frenner from Nine Inch Nails, come on. It's Will Yip.
And it's Nick Ravlinsky.
Yeah. Who is one of the best fucking producers in the world, And it does feel like the best of everything that they do put together. Will Yip, if you don't know, is an absolutely phenomenal
great
producer who's probably, it feels like he should be a household name by now, but for some reason he isn't. But I guarantee you, Will Yip's produced some of your favourite records. Just guaranteed he has. The production on this record is fucking phenomenal.
Yeah,
I agree with everything you're saying. I think
Jamie's vocals, I thought Reba sounded great on the last record. I think people had a problem with it. I think the way Jamie's vocal range and his vocals have improved on this record is that is the biggest huge step up. Like for me, of all the things that they've improved on. Oh yeah, undoubtedly.
Oh, I don't know if I'd agree with that.
Really?
I think there's so many step ups.
I think there's so many step ups, but I think in terms of the jump, I think it's the longest jump.
Okay, I mean, I agree that it's a step up, but I just think there's so many. I'm like, I don't even know where I would point to say which one's the biggest jump. But fine.
I genuinely do believe that this is a superior record to Forever, and like I say, that was my third favourite record of the entire decade.
I think it's going to sound very sort of antagonistic of us. Not that we've ever given a fuck in the past about not sounding antagonistic, but I think anyone who doesn't think this record is better than Forever, if they are in a professional capacity reviewing music, should probably stop, because it is objectively better. It's not subjective.
No,
it is objectively better.
It's clearly the only way I think you could prefer Forever, if you prefer them being boom, 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 heavy.
Preferring Forever is different.
Yep.
If you prefer Forever, that's fine. Like, to be clear, because I think Saturday Night Wrist is one of my favourite Deftones records. It's not one of the best.
Yeah.
It just isn't. And I know that, I realise that, but I prefer Saturday Night Wrist to Self-Titled. I prefer it. There's an argument. I prefer it to Adrenaline, for example. Is it better
You're
than
a fucking monster?
No, I'm not. I'm not, because I'm not saying it's better than Adrenaline. I'm saying I
Mm.
prefer it to. So if you prefer Forever to Underneath, fine. In terms of objective, this is better than that. If you don't agree that Underneath is better than Forever, and you are a professional, you are someone who reviews music professionally, you should quit. Because you are wrong.
I think you're definitely wrong. I mean, you're definitely wrong. This isn't hyper. There might be people listening to this who haven't heard the record yet, because it's obviously not out yet.
Well, there will be. There'll be loads of people listening to this who haven't heard the record.
Yeah,
hopefully,
this is not. Once you hear it, I don't think you can even say, "Oh, it's hyperbole" or whatever. It's just.
People will.
But it's just not, is it? I mean, the songwriting's better. The production's better. It feels like Forever is a great record, and it feels like the nightmarish journey and the many moods of one character, whereas this feels like a whole set of characters and all of their different little funny ways, all mixed together and perfectly. It's Pulp Fiction instead of Reservoir
Dogs. Yeah, that's a great show, actually.
It's the downward spiral over
Pre-Hate
Machine, which is what I said in my Metal Hammer review. I fucking stand by it.
It's what you've been saying since day one.
Pretty much is what I've been saying since day one.
I've been resisting saying it because I didn't want to steal it from you, but that's a very good shout. But it's if Forever is Pre-Hate Machine, this is Downward Spiral, absolutely. Yeah. Imagine if the next one's The Fragile.
I know.
Can you fucking imagine?
I think, shall I say something with like absolutely mind blowing, just to give you the hyperbole that you want, right? But I do think I think this could be the most significant release in metal since the first Korn album.
White Pony.
Yeah, White Pony's a good shout. Yeah.
You put me on the spot, but Lateralis by Tool.
But I think we knew what Tool sounded like then, didn't we?
True. Well,
I think
all right, Enema by Tool.
Yeah. But again, you know, like, I mean, I'm not fucking downplaying Tool in any way whatsoever. They're my fucking favourite band. But I think, again, they kind of exist in a vacuum of their own. I think if people try to copy this, what I'm interested in is, will people try and copy this? And what effect will that have on this record? So somebody actually, I'm going to get it up onto, I can't remember. Somebody tweeted us and said, I'm interested to know what you think about whether this album will sound so current now and so zeitgeisty now that it will then age. It's a good question and a good point.
It's a very good question.
Good
actually.
question. It's a good point. It's definitely worth something talking about. For me, I think that is out of Code Orange's hands.
Yes.
I think it depends on how well they get ripped off or how often they get ripped off or how, yeah. Korn's debut record
It sounds...
was a like, what the fuck is this? I remember hearing Korn's debut record. Now, the first sort of metal releases that I bought Load by Metallica, Evil Empire by Rage Against the Machine was one of that's not metal strictly, but you know what I mean. And White Zombie, Astro Creep 2000, Fear Factory, Demanufacture. They were like the first metal bands that I bought.
Great
right?
shout.
And I was just getting into it. And when I heard Korn, I was like, I have no idea what this is. Like, it sounded so unique. It sounded like it'd been beamed down from another planet. Like, it just completely different to all the other stuff that I'd heard, right? Now, there's definitely a touch of that with this. Quite a large touch of that with this. And Korn's debut album now does kind of sound of its time because it's a formula that's people could replicate.
Repeated ad infinitum.
Yeah. And people could replicate it with sort of decent modicums of success. You don't necessarily have to be a particularly great songwriter to try and just rip off Korn's signature sound.
You don't have to be a great guitarist, particularly. No. You have to, you had to go out and buy a 7-string and learn how to detune. Which is not difficult. No. But that was about it. That's all you really needed to do to replicate the Korn sound.
Will people be able to rip this off easily? I mean, people could, the reason why I think there were less Tool copyists.
Because you can't.
Because it's very difficult to rip that sound off. There were a bunch of people copying, say, Nine Inch Nails, but Nine Inch Nails has the Fragile, the Pre-Hate Machine. Pre-Hate Machine's dated a bit.
Definitely. Pre-Hate Machine has dated.
Downward Spiral, it has. No, in a bit. It has.
I don't think Downward Spiral has.
But I don't think Downward Spiral has because the songs are just so fucking good.
Yeah.
And I think, if anything is going to date, I would be more inclined to think that Forever will date rather than this. I think they've made it date.
I think it sounds a little bit dated already because of this.
Yeah.
Forever. I think it's insane to say that, but
it feels like a mad thing to say.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, as we've said, is there are bands who are still trying, like all of those bands who have taken influence, saying it in a nice way, copycatted in a not so nice way, Forever. None of them have actually got to Forever yet in terms of quality. They've got close.
The closest thing we've had is Vane.
I was going to say Arizona, Vane, which is really fucking close, I think, but not quite, and this record makes Forever, like you were saying, when Forever came out, it was a 9. I feel like retroactively, I think I'd agree. I would have given Forever a 9, maybe scraping a 10. I feel like if I went back to it now, it'd be like an 8 because this record exists.
Yeah, I mean, I did go back to it and I played the new one and then I played Forever, and I was just like, wow, that's the first time I've listened to Forever in the entire time it's been out, and I've gone, yeah, this is good. Rather than like, those bits where you go, oh, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
But it's been topped in every, like, it has been, like, when you hear it, I think when you hear it, unless, like you say, you're one of those people who go, well, I like hardcore. and who still want to sound like I Am King, probably.
Yeah.
There'll be those people.
Well, there'll be people who say that the Code Orange Kids record is the best thing they've ever done. And like, look, it's a good debut. It's especially an amazing debut when you consider they were fucking, 15 when they released it or recorded it or whatever. It's fucking brilliant. But no, come on.
Yeah.
Grow up.
This is this is not what I thought I'd be saying.
No.
I'll be honest with you. I did not think I would be sitting here and going.
We were really worried about this record.
I was pretty worried. I mean, I tell you, like, I think we say it again. Another thing we say in the interview is Jamie messaged me and said, it's much better. Wait to hear it. It's much better. And I thought, he's gone mad.
He's lost it.
He's lost his mind. And I was really worried about going, mate, no, it's good. I was really worried. But to be honest, I never even considered for a second that it actually might be better than Forever, because I think Forever is so fucking great.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? I've been banging on about it for years since it came out. It's fucking amazing record. Amazing.
Well, Forever was a record that you listened to and went, this is going to be the best album this band releases. Nope.
I mean, I actually do think at the time I remember saying, I think they've got more in them.
Okay.
I think I did say that. I think I did say, like if they were to really, because like you listen to something like Bleeding in the Blur and you go, there's definitely
something there.
Something that they can do more than that. But I was just like, do they want to? I don't know. Do they want to? I mean, Bleeding in the Blur.
Turns out they do, which is great.
Bleeding in the Blur is fucking brilliant.
Still a great song. They should definitely.
Song.
I don't want them to drop it. There's a lot of songs from Forever I don't want them to drop from the set.
I basically play those two albums back to back.
Yeah,
with a couple of the oldies
and chuck in My World as well. And I'll be happy.
But yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, in terms of, we haven't even really gone too deep in on what all the songs actually sound like. We haven't.
We've been talking for 80 minutes though.
Yes, we have. We should probably stop there. Basically, the review of the album is it's without any question at all. I don't think any metal band or any heavy band can top this year. I would be pretty surprised if we could go another 5 years without hearing anything it even gets close to this.
I'm not going to make predictions like that, but I think
we could do though.
I think it's possibly. Yeah, I think it's an absolutely stunning record. And it's there are very few bands who move the goalpost with the release and then 3 years later release another album and move the goalposts once again before other bands around them have even had an opportunity to catch up with their previous record. And that is exactly what's happened with this. Yeah. And if people, and like not enough outlets, not enough media outlets, our contemporaries, some of whom we really like, some of whom we don't, are bold and brave enough to go, this is a phenomenal record. I was having a chat with a friend of mine, Sam Slight from Roxins earlier today, and we were discussing Pitchfork and how Pitchfork, I was saying Pitchfork have given very few 10 out of 10s in their 25-year career as a website. It turns out that they've given 11 in 25 years. And he was sort of arguing, oh no, I think it's quite a lot more than that. It's a lot more than that when you go back to, if you consider retrospective reissues. If you consider reissues, they've given out like 50 or 60. But that's the thing, there's very few outlets who actually have the fucking nuts, the chutzpah, to put themselves on the line and go, you know what? This is a classic and will be regarded as such in years to come. I have no reservations doing that with this record, and there are going to be there's going to be loads of people who turn against it and turn against this review and just say, oh, it's, rubbish, this is hyperbole, blah, 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 which I think will prove my point even more.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. And I tell you what, not only do I think this, like, we've just Forever was number 3 on my favourite albums of the 2010s. It might be 10 years before we're doing our favourite albums of the 2020s, but I would be stunned if in 10 years' time this album isn't in my top. There's 20 records that I feel are better than this.
I hope I'm still alive by then.
I'll be fucking. I'll be 50.
Still
You're not
be listening to
going to want to
hardcore.
listen to my opinion when I'm 50. Are you?
We'll see.
I hope so. Anyway, but if we do end up doing that, then I will be very, very surprised. If there's 20 albums, it doesn't sound like that many. 20 albums in 10 years. That's 2 albums better than that. Better than this a year.
God,
Seems
that'd be
unlikely.
amazing. Yeah, it does.
Seems very, very, very unlikely. So let's switch it over. There you go. Underneath by Code Orange. That's what Renfrey and I think about it. I mean, it was more a kind of a dot around the sort of outskirts of how great the record is rather than a deep dive in what it actually sounds like. But we mentioned enough bands, I think, for you to get the idea that this is a very challenging, very unique and a very momentous record.
Yeah, if you're listening to this the day that it comes out, the album's out in 4 or 5 days, and you should be really fucking excited.
Should be very excited for it.
It's
fucking great.
Excellent. It's just a phenomenal piece of work.
But don't take our word for it. Let's have a little listen to what Jamie and Reba spoke about with us. That's coming up for you audio listeners right now. If you're watching on YouTube, this is the end of the video. Go and actually listen to the podcast because the interview is happening now.